Assalamu alaikum to some of you, and peace to the rest of you. In the last two videos, I've already addressed the Curry debacle, and this time I have to address it again because I saw something after I recorded the very last one. This was about LATRUTH's video. Now, LATRUTH said something, and I thought, well, maybe it's a joke, because I'm trained not to take this issue seriously, especially when it affects me. I'm trained to think that this is not a real issue, that it's just something some people make up as a crutch. And then every so often, I get slapped in the face and reminded that it's not a crutch and I'm not making it up and it's real. It's really going on and I'm seeing it. And LATRUTH mentioned this. Look up what LATRUTH has to say in his video about the Ayesha Curry debacle. And one of the things he says in the beginning, he also mentions again in the end, and that's how I realized that he was not joking. He said it in the beginning with a straight face, and then he said it in the end with a straight face, and he has no interest in saying this, no personal interest in saying it, but he still said it. So what this means to me is that it is so obvious that he can see it. And it is something that I should have been able to see. But again, like I said, I'm trained not to think that this is ever the case until the idea of it not being the case can be eliminated. The theory can be eliminated that it's not. I'm trained to believe and think that nothing is ever due to colorism until you can eliminate any other cause for something. Because I'm a light-skinned man. And my hair was straight. I could be confused for other origins. I'm beyond light skin. And so consequently, because men are not allowed to mention this sort of thing, I'm trained to think that nothing is ever colorism. And that any trouble I've ever had with ADOS women has been because of my game or the lack thereof, or something I didn't know about them, or my inability to read minds, or no dom game or something like that. Man, look, after what LATRUTH said, I thought about it and realized I can't rule this out anymore. This is truth. He pretty much said, despite the fact that Ayesha Curry is about the same shade as Stephen Curry, she said what she said because he's pale. That's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, she wouldn't have said this had he been darker. And then I thought back, okay, the only time that somebody publicly went after a darker or medium complexion husband almost to the same degree as when Tina Knowles did it, and she's from a different era. And even then, her first husband, Matthew Knowles, she never disrespected like this. And he was much darker than her current husband, or noticeably darker than her current husband. So even though she's from an era in which they might have done that, she didn't do it when she had a much darker husband than her current husband all these decades. Her first husband admitted to being somewhat colorist. That's real. And look, I'm going to say this. LATRUTH was on to something. And he even said, I'm not even light-skinned, I'm team dark-skinned, but this is ridiculous. Now, that's what he said. So I realize now that, you now know that I'm not making this up. And I'm not even latching on to this because I want to use a crutch, as many of you would want to say. Because the thing is, like I said, I'm trained to not think that something is colorism until you can eliminate all other reasons for something. I, for years, never thought that the reason I was going through extra trouble with ADOS women was colorism. Never thought this because I was trained not to think that anything was ever due to colorism. I was trained to believe that colorism never ever adversely affected light-skinned black folks until about 95. And even then, I wasn't allowed to think that it had any adverse effect on judging a black man's masculinity until some friends of mine told me that this was the case. So in other words, everything I've ever said that had to do with colorism, I had to have confirmed by someone else, because I wasn't allowed to come to this conclusion on my own without being called insane. After my last fight in high school, one of my classmates said, the reason that you've gone through the stuff you've gone through and that you had to fight is because you're not black. I said, see, that's that bull. I am black. I'm just light skinned. He said, that's what I mean. You not black, you not dark. That's why he did what he did to you. That's why he said what he said. That's why he cut you in line. That's why he singled you out. And I said, God damn. I was never allowed to think this. And here it is in my face. And even then, I was only allowed to draw that conclusion when it came to fighting. Then I went through college. ADOS women giving me crap again. And when I say crap, I'm talking like being singled out for disrespect sometimes. And then I'm just going to put it like this. I've already mentioned some of the things that I've learned about it over my lifetime. But I recorded something a year and 9 months ago, almost 2 years ago. And the title of it was something like, some pro-black folks have to marry out. I was talking about light-skinned men, mostly. There are some black women who, for whatever reason, are undervalued by black men. They exist, and they may have to marry non-black men or non-ADOS men. But I was not encouraging them to marry white men because that's a different level of danger. It was the same for black men. I'm not encouraging any black men to ever marry white women because they're a different level of danger. But the fact remains that if you are a light-skinned man in certain parts of the United States, you're going to be treated differently, and it's not going to be positive. And you have every right and every reason to look at ADOS women and say, hell no, and go to somewhere else. Either black women of other cultures, preferably, or even women of other women of color. You may have to, because some of you just ain't going to be treated the same way as other black men would be treated. And I'm going to tell you now, Steph Curry, the last video I recorded was to address you. I addressed the class issue and how there were women of the same socioeconomic class as you and Mrs. Curry that still wanted guys that were a little rough around the edges. I addressed that because that's what came to mind, and I knew about that. I forgot about the color issue, bruh. And I didn't think to apply it in this situation until LATRUTH said, nobody with a dark-skinned husband has said anything like this. This bad. NBA or not. And I thought, oh, wow, that's true. That is very true. Oh, wow. You know what, bruh? Mr. Curry, man, I think you need to leave her. Straight up. I think you need to just ditch, just bounce. Because she done embarrassed you before. And honestly, man, if you had done anything ever to embarrass her, she wouldn't have stayed with you, despite your money. I mean, look what you got right now. Look at the money you bring to the table. Look at your above average height and your muscles. Look at the dom game that you have on the court that some guys say you don't have off court. Look at this because of your shade. And you're still recognizably black because your hair is still African and woolly. Now, I look like Steph Curry, but my eyes are darker. I got the same skin color and hair color Steph Curry has, but my height's normal. I'm not as tall as he is, I don't think. There's one other thing, though. My hair being the same color as his hair, it grows out, or it used to grow out straight. I took it off now. But when I grew it, when I had it, it was straight. Run a comb right through it. Boy, I was never allowed to think that that was why I was catching the crap and the mistreatment and the price discrimination, I should say, from ADOS women until I was 24, and a friend of mine, a lady, sister I worked with, just sat me down and broke it down to me on the job one day. It was like, look, this is what you're facing. It's not even your fault. You're being treated differently because of your appearance. And I asked her, how did you know I was even being treated differently? She told me she could look at me and tell, because that's how black women have to treat guys that look like me, or else their friends are going to make fun of them for giving us a chance. I said, so is that bad? That's what it's like. And I'm going to briefly tell you all what I've been through, because I bet you Steph went through some of the same things before he grew to his height. And before he developed a reputation for being a killer on the court. Imagine, I want brothers, some of you already know about this. And I want you brothers to imagine, and then I want you sisters to imagine too. Imagine being a man, black man, but you see that other black men, if they got certain things in order, get a favorable response. And then you have these same things in order, but every time you make an approach, you get met with interrogations that are unlike what other brothers get, and you don't even know that there's this difference until you're an adult. You're an adult before you find out with a certainty that you are being treated and scrutinized more harshly than other brothers are, and you're never told why. And so everything that you do and everything you say is scrutinized, and it is interpreted in a way that is disfavorable to you. So any confidence is arrogance. Any humility is a lack of confidence and self-esteem. Your consideration of others is taken as being a pushover, having no backbone. But your willingness to look out for yourself and your own interest is seen as arrogance and conceit and selfishness. You are never in the middle and balanced, never. Though you're never assessed to be this way by women if they're attractive. Now, if they're ugly, they will, but if they're attractive, there's no way they would assess you to be this way, regardless of the socioeconomic class. But then when some of them wind up with other men's kids or diseases or something disfiguring them, you're the first one they come running to. But then even at that point, they don't want to be seen out in public with you. No, they come to you when they're still committed to someone else, married or in a committed relationship. But when they want you and they admit it, they only want you on the side. You can only be the side dude. These are the rules you got to go by. But your homeboys and your homegirls are in normal relationships. You get stood up. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't say anything wrong. You just got stood up. No explanation offered. And it happens again and again and again with various women. But you know that this is not normal because you can call your boys up or some of your friends that are girls, and they're out on a date with somebody. So obviously no one stood each other out. But you get stood up. You get games played on you in a way that other guys don't get played on them, and you don't know what it's about for years. You're told sometimes, well, you just got to get certain things in order. You got to get your game up, get your dime game up, get your resources up. But when you do these things, it doesn't help you in a positive fashion. It just helps you to attract the more ratchet women who have even less to offer at this point. But not the ones who have as much to offer as you do. And you realize after years of this, you finally realize you're undervalued in the market, but you're still not told why. You still don't know. And when you finally are told why, other people want to tell you that that's not why. It's just you. No. I considered for years that I was doing something wrong, and I just didn't know what it was. So I didn't blame myself morally. I just figured, okay, there's something I don't know, something I haven't figured out. Come to find out it didn't goddamn matter. That's what I went through. And I didn't realize how deep this was because, in all honesty, when I realized what I was going through and why I was going through it, I looked and said, well, okay, it's not so bad because actually I am not always recognizable as belonging to our race. It's like a tiger that's born without stripes. Well, yeah, it's a tiger. It's shaped like a tiger. It roars like one. It has the same diet. But another tiger may simply not know that it's a tiger. So I said, okay, well, understandably. Just not recognizable, so it's harder for them. I just wish they'd been honest about it from jump. But, okay, it is difficult for them. And then you come to find out that it's really not. You come to find out that in actuality, it's so bad that even when you're recognizably black, but you're that pale, you still get treated as less than by other brothers. If Steph Curry looked like me, he would not have married Ayesha Curry. He would not have dated Ayesha Curry. That's real. He would not have known what success with women was like until he became a killer on the basketball court. Now, from my understanding, he was actually successful with them. But I would like to know if it was only after he became a killer on the court. I'd be interested to find out. But this colorism thing, brothers, it is worse than what you might think. It is worse than what you may be allowed to admit. It's worse. It's worse than what we thought it was. And I'm gonna say this: when I recorded that video a year and 9 months ago, and I said what I said, and I was mainly talking about light-skinned brothers might, maybe having to marry out. Now I'm going back and I'm addressing the video again, and what I'm going to say is, brothers, if you look like Stephen Curry, if that's what you look like, you probably going to go through the same thing, because you saw what he went through with his extra height, extra muscle, all that money, and his provision and his responsibility to her, and the way that he caters to her, and the way that he stays by her side. He still has to go through this insult. What you think you're going to have to go through? You have every reason to never again approach an ADOS woman in your life. Every reason. If you've been through this at any point in your life, if you think that you might be expected to work harder than other brothers to get the same attention from the same woman, if you think you might be stood up more often than other brothers get stood up, if you think that this is the case, then brothers, pay more attention, make sure that that's what it is, and if it is, don't ever approach another ADOS woman again a day in your life. Approach women that are non-ADOS and non-white as well, of course. Give them a shot. Try that and see what that's like. Because I can tell you now, you are being insulted. The way that you are expected to sit there and tolerate this kind of treatment from women when you are responsible, when you haven't done anything to drive them away. You are being undervalued for the most part now. In some parts of the country, you're not. I understand that. But brothers, I want you to understand, a lot of you LSBs are being undervalued. You're not aware of it because you're not allowed to talk about it, so you're not allowed to compare notes. But I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to break the taboo, and I'm going to vent and whine and bitch about it just enough to give you the information. Even though it might seem unmasculine, I'm not in the country, so it's not going to ruin my reputation. But I'm going to tell you, your chances are you're being undervalued. You are being expected to pay twice the price for half the results. If you are willing to do that, you will lose the respect of the women for being willing to do it. And if you're not willing to do it, they still are just not going to give you a shot because you're still expected to do it. It's a lose-lose scenario. So you friend zone ADOS women. If you find that you were in one of those regions where that's the case, I've heard in the Midwest it's not like that. But in the Southeast, I know it is. So if you a light-skinned brother and you in the Southeast, yes, go ahead and friend zone ADOS woman. I'm not saying hate them, just friend zone them. You don't approach them anymore. And if any of them who are your friends say, well, what would it take for you to be with an ADOS woman or an African-American woman? You tell her she has to have all her stuff together. She's got to have her looks together. She got to have the rest of her life together. And she has to approach me. Why does she have to have all this together and approach you? You say to them two reasons. Number one, gender equality. The second reason is, this is how I know that I'm her type. And when they say, so why do you think you're not her type? You got a problem with self-confidence? Then you say, no, that's not the case. I didn't say so that I know I'm good enough for her. I said, this is how I know that I am her type. Her type. That's all. Look, it's the age of gender equality. How do I know I'm her type? She approaches me. They can approach guys that are darker than me. Why not me? What's wrong with that? Women don't approach men. No, that's crap. No, that is not true. Women approach men. They give off choosing signals, all that stuff. And if a guy's the same height as me and he's chocolate and he's got some muscle and he's got all of his stuff in a row, all his ducks in a row and everything else set up nicely, they get approached. So you know what? The way for me to know that I'm a woman's type is for her to approach me too. That's all. That's all it is. I'm simply saying that I demand the same effort from these women that they're already giving to other guys. That's all it is. Women should be able to understand that. And if your friends cannot understand when you say that you're simply demanding the same kind of effort that the women are already paying to other guys, then you understand that subconsciously or consciously, even she as a friend is undervaluing you on the romantic market because of your shade. That's what's going on. That's real. And she will prove that to be the case. Now, if you say I'm simply demanding the same effort they're willing to put forth for other men that are in my same situation, and she understands it, then this is somebody that's not undervaluing you. This is a friend, a real friend. But if she doesn't, then this is someone that just subconsciously expects that you need to be valued a little bit less than a chocolate brother on the market. That you are supposed to be fewer women's type because you not chocolate, or you not in the middle. And that'll prove your point. And that's when you can say, no, see, I will approach non-ADOS women. I'll give them a shot. But an ADOS woman's got to have her stuff in order, and she got to approach me. Brothers, do not, no matter what your shade is, do not let any sisters make you try harder than other guys to get the same results. That just means you're not her type, whatever your shade is. But I got to tell light-skinned brothers this at this point because they're not allowed to talk about it, so they're not allowed to compare notes. So a lot of them won't even realize this. Yeah, a lot of you brothers, you've been expected to try twice as hard. And some of you weren't conscious of it, so you tried twice as hard. But now be aware of it. Look for signs that you have to try twice as hard. If you don't have to, don't trip. It's cool. You've been treated fairly, treat them fairly. But if you see strong evidence that you're expected to try harder for less, man, you bounce. And don't ever look back. I hope that this is of benefit. Assalamu alaikum, and thanks for your patience.